Hello again, good people. In our lecture today, we are going to be talking about values and ethics in social work. So we're just going to begin right here at the beginning and talking about what our understanding of values would be. And we know that if we look at it from a sociological perspective, we know that our values are something that hold our ideas, our beliefs, our morals, and that kind of justifies actually the same thing within the social work profession. Our values are kind of what shape the idea and the foundation of what the social work profession is all about. And when we consider our values within the social work profession, there needs to be an understanding of the history that we started from. And our book just gives us a little bit of information when we talk about the foundation of our values, but I want to focus on a very important perspective, and that is the Milford Conference, when we begin to see this shift a little bit in the ideas of what social work and what the profession is going to be focusing on. When we talk about the Milford Conference, it's important for us to understand that one of the things, or some of the things that came out from this conference is looking at the role of the values that play into the social work profession, that they are similar yesterday as they are today. So it's kind of our foundation of our contemporary practice. And when we talk about what we value in the field of social work, it is all focused around this person in the environment, looking at how do we create social and economic justice and human dignity for everyone, looking at how do we do this in a way that folks are viewed as equal across the board. When we are talking about our values within the field of social work, we look at a couple of different things that create the context of our value system. And one of those issues becomes, or that's introduced to us in our textbook, is this sociocultural issue, where we talk about a humanitarian approach versus a punitive approach, where there is this dominant belief system that our systems are influenced by social welfare, meaning that we look at it from a punitive approach, saying that it's all that person's fault that they are fill in the blank from this marginalized population. Whereas we try to focus on, we try to move into this humanitarian approach where we're saying that we're trying to find an answer. We're trying to find resources that get everybody on at least a level playing field when we're talking about social and economic reform. Another context that we look at in the field of social work, or the values of the social work profession. And when we talk about the values of the social work profession, we're looking at one of the key things is finding a balance between the working relationship between the practitioner and our client, consumer, patient. Looking at finding that balance so that there is a respect for the position, but also a respect for each person's role in the helping process. The third value context that we look at in the field of social work is deals with our agencies and our individual personal values, our professional standards. When we're talking about working with the agencies or organizations, we know that they are generally governed by mission statements, value statements, purpose statements. The mission statement is something that is going to basically define the purpose of the agency, and it's going to be giving some specific information on what the agency or organization's goal would be. When we're talking about the professional standards for the individual, this is where we get into the concept and the idea of we have to search ourselves, meaning that we, the professional, helping professional, have to find a way that we check ourselves and look at our professional standards. And when we're talking about our professional standards, those standards are something that we weigh against our professional code of conduct. And I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. Another thing that we talk about with our value context in the field of social work is looking at or how we view our clients in a diverse situation or a diverse society. When we're talking about working with clients and the diversity of values, we have to have an understanding that, first of all of our clients, no two of our clients will ever resemble one another. Their issues will not be the same. Their resolution will not be the same. We're talking about working within groups of people that may be coming from marginalized populations, but how do we create an individual or help this client to see themselves as an individual versus being a part of a marginalized group? The next thing that we look at, or the fifth thing that we look at when we're talking about our value context in the field of social work, is the presenting problem. When we're looking at the presenting problem, again, after we're talking about our clients being in a diverse population or marginalized group, we have to be able to identify the basis of the problem. So the basis of the problem can be identified in one of two ways that our book introduces. It introduces the inter-system conflict versus the intra-system conflict. The inter-systems, that inter means that there is a conflict between the systems that are at play that may feed into the presenting problem that the client is coming to you with. That intra-system conflict is looking at the conflicts within a specific system and how that interferes with, or how that impacts, again, our client's problem or our client's resolution of the problem. The final thing that we look at when we talk about our value context in the field of social work, again, coming back to our personal values, our self-awareness as a helping professional. It is very important, good people, very important that we examine our personal and our professional biases and values so that we have an understanding of where our weaknesses may be as helping professionals. Self-awareness is very crucial in the helping profession, because if there is an issue that you may have or a concern that you may have in working with an individual, that underlying issue could prove to be a hindrance in helping that client, consumer, patient move to the next level or move towards resolution of the problem that they were dealing with. So it's very important that we have an idea of our own personal biases. That is an exercise that we'll be doing a little bit later in this class session. But I do want you to be familiar with the whole idea of self-assessment, self-awareness, and the model that we're going to be looking at that with is going to be the respectful model. And we'll get into that a little bit later. As we move on in this chapter, talking about our values and ethics in social work, we come up to this point of talking about ethics and social work. And when we talk about ethics, what does ethics mean to you? And now I really want you to think about this. How do you define ethics based on what is right morally, what is right professionally? When we're looking at ethics from our perspective as helping professionals, the book introduces us to, very briefly, micro versus macro ethics. Now, what does that mean to you? And I really want you to think about the micro versus the macro. The micro ethics, as the book explains, are the standards and the principles that kind of guide us in our direct practice with our client, consumer, or patient. The macro deals with the social issues, social policy. And now I really want you to think about how would you as a professional be impacted by macro ethics working within, and think about whatever marginalized population you want to, and think about how would that impact your direct service, your micro ethics in working with a particular client, consumer, or patient. When we're talking about our ethics in the field of social work has a governing body, and it is referred to as the NASW, the National Association for Social Workers. And we do have a code of ethics, the NASW Code of Ethics. In that code of ethics, there is specific information that talks about professional behavior. It discusses licensing, and regulation. It discusses decision-making power, supervision, all of that good stuff. When we talk about the NASW Code of Ethics, this is what guides us as a professional social worker. It gives us very specific standards of our character and what we are, or I should say how we are to present ourselves, both in representation of our profession and in representing our clients, consumers, or patients. When we're talking about our NASW Code of Ethics, we know that that governs us nationally. But then internationally, we have another guiding body, and that is our International Federation of Social Workers. We have our NASW, which is here nationwide. Our IFSW is our International Federation, and that still guides our conduct internationally, and our standard of care, our standard of work internationally as we continue to function as a social worker. So when we're talking about the social work and the social work profession, we get to this place where our book opens up and presents information to us about 10 key values that are very important within our ethical principles as a professional social worker. And so I'm just going to review these real quickly, but they are discussed in your textbook. The very first one is acceptance. When we talk about acceptance, and I know that some of you may have heard me say this before, and if not, this may be the first time you hear me say this, but within our society, we do struggle. It's my opinion that we struggle to accept culturally as a whole people who are different from us. And so acceptance within the social work profession is very important, because this is going to convey to our client, consumer, patient that whole characteristic of being genuine, of coming to this person or being of assistance to this person and being real, if I could just say that, being real in our desire to watch them and to assist them moving on to a level of healing, a level of empowerment. The next one that we look at is individualization, being mindful that each client is different. This client will not be like the next one, who was not like the last one, who will not be like future ones. When we're talking about working with our clients, consumers, and patients, we need to be mindful of a couple of things. Some of them may come to us with predetermined diagnosis. Some may come to us with being very symptomatic of fill in the blank. We have to be mindful that we are working with our clients, consumers, and patients as individuals, as people, not based on the stigma or the stereotype or the label that may have been assigned to them. So individualization, make sure that we treat each person as an individual. When we talk about that purposeful expression of feelings, this is where we get into the place of where we're making sure that everything that we talk about, that we're talking about it in a way that it is expressing the feeling at that moment when we're working with our client, consumer, or patient. We are getting to the place where we're moving beyond this superficial relationship, superficial conversation. And you all are familiar with that, how that goes. When you see someone in passing, it's that, hey, how are you doing? Oh, great to see you, Sally. Or, oh, great to see you, Bob. And you move on about your day. When we talk about purposeful expression of feelings, we're in this place where we're actually having a connection, one with our client, where we are getting beyond the how are you feeling, but we're actually hearing them talk about what's going on for them, and we reflect that back to them in our interaction with them. One of the other ones that we get into after the purposeful expression of feeling is non-judgmental attitudes and objectivity. And I'm going to flash back here to objectivity. When we talk about non-judgmental attitudes and objectivity, they very closely mirror one another, in that we don't want to be biased in the way that we approach our clients, consumers, and patients. We must at all times avoid interjecting our personal feelings and our prejudices, and work with our clients, consumers, and patients under the presumption that we have accepted them for who they are. The good, the bad, the ugly, the nice smelling elderly person and the foul smelling adolescent who's struggling with being obedient. Whatever the issue may be, we have to be non-judgmental. We have to be this person that we establish a safe place for our clients, consumers, and patients, that they feel comfortable talking with us as we work with them through their issues. The next one that we get to is our controlled emotional involvement. That controlled emotional involvement, we have to make sure that we get an understanding of this, good people. We must function at all times in this place of empathy. not sympathy, not pity, not, oh, I feel like, or I understand what you're feeling, or, oh, I feel so sorry for you. No, when we talk about working in this spirit of empathy, I am in this place where I am getting, an understanding or at least respect for the position that this client, consumer, patient may be functioning in. I need to make sure when I talk about this controlled emotional involvement, again, that I am void of my own emotional connection with my client, consumer, and patient, and that I hear their emotion, that I make a connection or I make sense of what it is they are relaying back to me based on their verbal and nonverbal communication. The next one that we get to is self-determination. When we talk about self-determination, this is all about our clients, consumers, and patients. We, as a helping professional, we are the navigator. We are the ones who provide the directions. Just consider yourself as riding shotgun in the front seat of a Cadillac, and you have the AAA roadmap. You are the one who's providing the direction for the client, consumer, or patient. Your client, consumer, or patient is the one who makes the final decision on the choices, on the direction, on the work that they are going to do. You are bound by just being this navigator. So you're bound by, okay, I'm going to provide you with the resources, with the information. I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to counsel with you. But you, client, consumer, or patient, are the one inevitably who makes all the final moves working towards your goals. The next one that we talk about is confidentiality. Y'all know confidentiality is a big one in the helping profession. When we talk about confidentiality, we are looking at establishing this relationship of trust between the client and the worker. Trust in that this client is comfortable coming to talk with you and meet with you about some issues that are very close and personal to them. Comfortable enough to know that whatever they say to you is going to be held basically in the strictest of confidence. You are going to be charged with keeping their records in a secure place. You're going to be charged to keeping your communication down to a minimum. And when I say keep that communication down to a minimum, I don't mean you can't go for supervision or you can't go for some instruction or direction from another colleague. But when we say keep the communication to a minimum, you will not be sharing specific information, specific identifying information of your clients, consumers, or patients. When we talk about a right to privacy, your clients have a right to view their record and all elements, all pieces of information in their record privately on their own, but also having the availability of someone there to interpret or to answer questions that they may have. Your client has a right to have informed consent. You must get an informed consent from your client when you're talking about beginning to work with them from a therapeutic perspective. Your client, that informed consent will consist of your client being knowledgeable of your credentials, your skill level, the agency or organization, the services that they are able to provide, the length of the sessions that you will be in. It will consist of giving the client information on the possible treatment plan. So the informed consent is something that is an ongoing, it is a living document or a living conversation that you have with your client, consumer, patient all throughout the treatment process. When we talk about, again, confidentiality, one of the other things that we have to think about is access to resources and accountability. When we talk about access to resources, we need to make sure that our clients, when they are going and seeking resources, that we are not making referrals to agencies, organizations, or other service providers that preclude this client from being successful in reaching their goal. Access to resources, that's something that, again, throughout our code of conduct, throughout the work that we do as helping professionals, things that we're always looking at to make sure that we provide the best opportunity for our clients to be successful in the treatment process. Accountability is all about you, the worker. Accountability meaning that you are competent in your skills, you are competent in the techniques that you are providing or that you're employing with your client, consumer, patient, that you have some integrity in the work that you are doing. It also implies that when we talk about accountability, that you are doing all that you need to do in order to stay current within your profession. And that means participating in professional education all throughout your profession. Finally, our book wraps things up with highlighting 16 ethical principles that we look at in the field of social work, that when you look at them all, they all basically come together, and the intent and purpose of the 16 ethical preferences is to promote empowerment and social justice for the clients, consumers, and patients who look to us as that guiding force. So this is our chapter on values and ethics in social work, all wrapped up for you. There will be an assignment and discussion post available for you in this week's folder. And also, one of the things in this week's folder that you will find as an assignment is to research some ethical codes of all helping practitioners. And so there will be a page in the folder that provides website access for you, or website addresses, I should say, excuse me, to other professional organizations that you can begin to research and look at their code of conduct. Okay, so again, this is the chapter on values and ethics in social work. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to contact me by email or by phone.